Hey guys, and welcome back to another video in the Tahere Mafi series. This week it's on her story, which is the fourth book in the series. Which this one I gotta say was kind of like a fever dream, which I guess makes sense if you think that this series was supposed to be a trilogy and not a series with 6 books. Okay, anyways, let's get into it. It starts out with Kenji all of a sudden hurrying into her room wanting help with Warner, who's pissed at him because he had fucked up his hair when Warner asked him to cut it a bit for him. Trim the edges, you know. Pretty much just because he wanted to make Juliet happy that the two of them are kinda bonding, which unfortunately went hilariously sideways, and now he's decided to go for a buzz cut instead. And Juliet was up to her neck in paperwork for all the things that needs to be done now that she's the Supreme Commander, and Castiel having suggested that she send word to other leaders and try to have a peaceful approach, and that right now they're probably waiting to see what she'll do next, and that wherever her next steps are, they matter very much. And so she did, and so far, Oceana is the only one who's responded that have agreed to come there and are looking forward to see her. And Warner, who is also going through his own struggles with the death of his father, where even though he hated him entirely, he's still grieving but also doesn't want to admit it, especially not to Juliet, which unfortunately has in this time led him to grow somewhat distant, which is very untimely, being that this is when they need to stick together the most, and he's kinda just avoiding her wherever he can. So later at breakfast, when she's waiting for Kenji, she sees Adam approaching her, and it seems like they haven't interacted much and seem kind of uncomfortable around each other now. And so he keeps it shortly and tells her that Castiel's waiting for her. Okay, but throughout their short interaction, she notices how he doesn't look too good, and he reluctantly asks her about Warner, seemingly worried about him. When she then gets there, Castiel seemed to be pretty worried about the RSVP she got from Oceana, and how it didn't seem to be formal at all, as it should have, being that they had said how they're looking forward to see her instead of meeting her, like they already knew each other, which for some reason has him pretty worried. And back to Warner's POV, he seems to also not be too happy with his newfound lack of privacy, with everyone coming and going, and there doesn't seem to be any way he can get much alone time. And Elalio lets him have the other families want to talk to him before meeting Juliet, and also lets him know that Ibrahim's children are on their way. And even though just showing up like this unannounced had always been fine between the leading families, he didn't seem happy about it, which makes sense being that they're not exactly under normal circumstances. So he goes to try and find Juliet to warn her so that she doesn't get blindsided when they just show up out of nowhere. But on the way, he gets stopped by Adam, who wanted to talk to him, and it's kinda like they could both see the Anderson struggle on each other's faces. So now back over to Juliet. She's out taking a walk with Kenji, during which she tells him how stressed she is and how this job is way more demanding than she had imagined, and it's almost impossible to keep up with. Now back over to Warner and Adam. They go out to the balcony and talk about it, and he tells him how James doesn't know about any of it, that Anderson's the father or that Warner's his brother, and that he for now wants to keep it that way, but Warner will have to tell him about everything regarding Anderson, which he's just not ready for yet, which in a way slightly seems to have disappointed him, because he kinda wouldn't have minded so too much for James to know he's his brother. And it also turns out that back when they had just found out that they're siblings, and he had whispered something to him back in the gym in Nightmare, if anyone forgot, he had made an attempt at apologizing for everything that happened between them, like how he had tortured or tried to kill him. And Adam also clears out the elephant in the room, letting know that everything between them and Juliet is fine, and that he's really moved on, and that at the time he had gone through a lot, especially in fear of Warner finding out and killing him, but that now his only priority is his family. Back to Juliet and Kenji. He tells her about his family and how they had been murdered, which is how he had ended up in the system. And later on, in Castiel's care, he found him living on the streets. When they get back from the walk, Lelu lets her know that the son of the Supreme Commander of Asia is there and wants to meet her. And despite Kenji and Castiel trying to convince her to tell and bring Warner with her, who not only knows how to navigate an interaction like this, but also knows him personally, but she didn't want him with her because she needed to prove it to herself that she could manage the job and the responsibilities of her title, and that she could do this without needing Warner at every step in the way. Which I kinda get, because it's kinda one of those get back on the saddle kind of things. You know, when she needs help, but also if she gets too comfortable having Warner everywhere and helping with everything, then she's never gonna be able to do the job. Seems kinda stupid now, but I get it. Now, over to Warner and what he's up to. So he gets stopped by Castiel, who wants to talk to him about how they should navigate the situation with Juliet and the other families. But when he realizes that Warner isn't exactly catching on to what the problem is, realizes that he actually doesn't know where Juliet actually comes from or the truth about her parents. Now they're just adding a whole new struggle. Now, over to Juliet and Kenji again. They're meeting with Haydar, who's kind of surprised that Juliet is who she is because while walking there in her normal teenage outfit, she's not exactly looking the part. Well, he's still wearing a shirt made out of chains, but they still end up having a pretty decent conversation, and he tells them how he's planning to stay for a few weeks. Over back to Warner, he seems extremely shocked by whatever it was about Juliet and her past that Castiel had told him, but he's looking through all of his father's files, trying to find something, anything to prove or disprove it. When Juliet comes in and they're talking, she tells him how she doesn't feel like she can do, and how it should have been him in the role instead. Later with Kenji, Warner tells them how her dad is kinda harmless, and not someone they need to be worried about, but that his sister, on the other hand, who hasn't arrived yet, they need to be wary of. Later on during the dinner with Juliet, Warner, Kenji, Haydar, and his sister, who just arrived, Nazira, and when she comes in, she's wearing a headscarf, which kinda confuses Kenji, being that it's a show of religion, which their establishment are against and have destroyed since they took over, and how confusing it is to him that the daughter of a supreme commander to break the law, and she's not at all happy with him commenting on her outfits, which kinda causes them back and forth between them, and when they're done, and she pretty much chews him out, she leaves, and it seems that he's already fallen in love with her. The next day, Haydar and Nazir join the three of them on their morning walk, during which Haydar seems to be annoyed with Warner because of how much he seems to have changed now. And walking a bit behind, Nazir kindly tells Kenji that she's not interested, and also asks Juliet if she can have authorization to wander around the sector and look around, being how much it has changed since the last time she'd been there, which he's fine with. And after she tells Nazira that it's fine and she can get authorization, she walks away from them, which leaves her with Kenji, who then also has to leave and head back to base to catch up with Ward. And after Juliet is left alone for a short time, just wants to relax and turn her powers off for a second, all of a sudden she gets shot and attacked by someone. But luckily she's saved just in time by Nazira. They take her to a medical wing with Sarah and Sonia attending to her, and luckily she's fine, needs to rest and is kind of in a coma-like state. And Castiel is talking to Warner, trying to convince him to tell her what it was that they had discussed earlier, and that she will find out sooner or later, but that she should be hearing it from him. But Warner really don't know how to tell her, because then he will have to tell her all the things that he had been keeping a secret, and that he's also scared that she'll hate him after, which very understandable, being that what he had been keeping from her is that he had known that she was adopted, but had thought that her bio parents had died. It turns out that they're actually alive, that she has a sister, and the worst is that he had been torturing her, or more accurately had overseen it, which had been the task he'd been given for letting him stay in Sector 45. And even more mind-blowing is that apparently both of them, Juliet and her sister, had been part of an experiment, and now they're planning to blow up Sector 45, and what they're planning for Juliet isn't exactly clear yet, if they want to kill her or put her somewhere else. Then it's a part of her journal from when she was in the asylum, and where she writes about how society sees her as a monster, and how if she truly was one, that shouldn't she be feeling it by now, the angry, vengeful feeling. She wakes up in the middle of the night, being a bit weird after having again seen the birds and dreaming about the asylum, but there is someone there, which in the dark is not really clear who, but it seems to be Nazira, and she warns her that the people around are lying, and that the other supreme commanders want her dead. But even saying that as someone who is representing one of the commanders, it doesn't seem like she wants to hurt her, but it seems more like she's on Juliet's side and wants to help her out. Now over to Warner, and what he's up to. He's going through his father's files, trying to find out about Juliet's bio parents, and find out how they had handed her and her sister over when her sister had first shown signs of her powers, and also how apparently both of them have been key players in this establishment taking over. He was on about how all the unnaturals, as they call them, had been killed off or kicked or locked up and used, and he also finds how he had sent out a request to be allowed to kill Juliet after she had shot him because she had gotten out of control. And so he's having a huge dilemma because he doesn't know how to tell her any of this, especially his own part in it. Getting back to Juliet and her situation, she's now fully woken up, but it seems like the poison that was on the bullet has been affecting her brain because she's hallucinating, but apparently it's not really something serious. Back over to Warner, he's obviously not in a good headspace, which is when James and Adam walk by, and James stops to talk to him, wanting to cheer him up, and Warner kind of goes on with the conversation while also having some realization that this is his brother. And later on, he ends up going and telling Juliet everything, and she obviously breaks up with him, which then causes him to have a panic attack, but luckily Kenji gets there and gets him his pills, and they kind of talk where Warner tells him what happened, and Kenji tries to help him out, and it seems that this is the beginning of them becoming friends, which is kind of funny, but it seems seems like all they needed to become friends was for Juliet to stop trying to force them to it. After Juliet goes out on a walk and starts screaming, realizing that she can now project her powers through her voice too, starts remembering Nazira in the medical wing and her warning, and that's when she notices her sitting above her, and it turns out that she also has powers and that hers is fly. Now Warner and Kenji and was really helping him out with his panic attack and to calm him, and with the whole situation it really seems like they are really becoming friends, like I said, and calmly talking about the real life stuff and not trying to kill each other. And as if things couldn't get any messier for them, the next Supreme Commander kid to show up is the daughter of the Commander of Europe, Lina, who also happens to be Warner's ex, who also does not seem to be too happy with him, and when she slaps him the moment he opens the door, the whole thing ends up with Kenji having to drag her away to where she'll be staying. Poor Kenji just has to drag away anyone who wants to fight Warner. Probably does not get paid enough for this. Back over to Juliet and Nazira becoming girlfriends, basically. They really seem to be kind of building a nice friendship, and the way she talks to her, it seems that they have some shared past, and it's like Nazira remembers her, but gives up on it, and Ken leaves it on somewhat a cryptic note, but she ends up giving her a heads up about Lina and her past with Warner, and tell her how the relationship was basically orchestrated by their parents, but Lina actually kinda liked Warner, and he was basically as cold as one can be with her. He also tells her how she's actually there to help her, and how she doesn't actually dislike Warner, and tell her how one time when Haida was at his lowest, she had called and he had immediately gone on a plane to them, and really helped Haida out of it, but somehow they doesn't consider them friends. Yet Haida thinks of him as his best friend. Nazir also goes on to show Juliet her second power, that she can turn invisible, which has Juliet humorously pointing out that Kenji's gonna be pissed because kinda hissing. On to more important thing, it tells her how the re-establishment are planning to destroy Sector 45 with everyone in it, but she's planning to help them, though doesn't want it to spread just yet, and wants them to make up a plan first. After she heads back and decides to move into Anderson's old room, where she pretty much spirals, gets drunk, and shaves her head, getting a buzz out like the one Warner has. And later, while she's drinking, Warner and Kenji find her being pretty much a mess, and Warner kinda helps her sobering up a bit, helps her to bed where she passes out. But when she wakes up and notices her new look, she seems to actually be very happy with it. She has told where everyone else are, and the other three children have arrived. And even though Lina kinda does try to pull some BS, she still walks in there in full commander mode, not in the mood to deal with anyone's crap. And the meeting ends up being pretty short because she almost immediately tells them how she has a lot to do and leaves. Warner was parking after her, talk, and they kinda make up, but she backs out and leaves. And Cassius stays to talk to him, but Kenji goes after Juliet. He tells him how he always wanted to protect, being that they have been through so much, they forgot those three kids, and should be the ones dealing with everything they have been. While they're talking, Nazir and Haida shows up, saying that they need to talk to them about something that seems pretty urgent. Over to Juliet and Kenji's conversation. She's pretty mad at him, thinking he had known all of these things, but Kenji calms her down, telling her that he just found out, and she tells him what Nazira told her, and that apparently she's going to have to kill them first before they kill everyone in Sector 45. So now at the symposium, she starts talking, but it seems like the commanders of the different sectors aren't happy with what she's done, so they start threatening her, which she doesn't care much for. She just raises her voice, even though it's making her angry. But it's when they start shooting and Ian and Winston get hit that she gets mad and starts screaming, which with her new powers, she starts destroying everything and everyone there. And from there, everything becomes a mess, where everyone are either being shot or dragged away, and the Supreme Commanders of Oceania have arrived. But more shocking is that they turn out to be our parents. The real parents are the Supreme Commanders of Oceania. Like I said, fever dream. Doesn't even make any sense what's happening, but okay, whatever. That's what's happening here. And the next chapter is born, and it's just a bunch of dots. So I guess it means he's in shock, I don't know. So back to Juliet. She wakes up in a chiller's bedroom that seems to have been divided in two, and were probably hers and her sister's, Emmeline's old childhood bedroom. She starts looking through the room and finds a note that from 12 years ago and before their establishment, and that says that they had their memories removed and are no longer asking for them, and it has been sent to the Supreme Commanders of Oceania from Anderson. She also finds old childhood pictures with her and her sister, with their parents, her and her sister with Nazira, so I guess they didn't know each other. Aaron's parents visiting for Christmas, and of her and Aaron, and it also seems her real name had been Ella Summers. And it ends with her mom coming in asking if she's gonna come out for dinner before she passes out. Like I said, doesn't make any sense, and the ending was just, I don't know what happened. I don't know what the ending was. And so now let's get into the novella Shadow Me, which is from Kenji's point of view. And it starts after morning, the last three kids show up, so I guess Warner shows up at his door to get him at 6 in the morning, and they kinda have a little chat, being that Kenji feels bad for him after his breakup, and Warner, in his own Warner way, kinda compliments him once or twice, can see how he thinks higher of him than the others, and that he's capable of more and doesn't need to put in a little more work. Then he leaves, and Kenji goes on to get ready for a day, and when he runs into Winston and asks him about Brendan, it turns out he has a crush on him, and Kenji is the only one who knows. And after they go the separate ways, Kenji kinda has some small issues with himself, with how all of his friends are in a relationship and at least have someone in their life they like, and he kinda feels lonely. Then on his way, he sees Nazira, who asks him about his powers and also seems kinda annoyed, which is probably because she's annoyed they both have the same power, but poor Kenji just has her being annoyed at him out of nowhere, or such a simple answer, because he doesn't even know that she has powers, or that is the same as his. She's the only one who knows, and she's pissed at him, and he doesn't know why. And it's 6 in the morning, way too early for his stuff. But a bit later they end up talking it out, and she explains that she had misunderstood his intentions at first when they had met at the dinner. She also says that she has something to tell him, but can't do it there in the middle of the hallway, and they can wait, which slightly freaks him out, worried and confused about what she could be wanting to tell him. He picks up some muffins as breakfast and hurries to where they're all supposed to meet, where Bonnie is waiting for him, annoyed because he's late, and it's honestly really funny how he just turns to Kenji saying how it's all his own fault for having trusted Kenji to be on time. Also, other interactions now just seems so funny. To be honest, Kenji and Wanda are probably the best thing coming from this book. Then it's when they all meet the other 3 kids, which is how he's worried about Juliet for how out of character she's acting, which must mean she's really not doing well. After she leaves, Wanda asks him to give them a minute, and all the other kids seem surprised and genuinely moved over it, which is kind of weird, but being that she used to be one of them and Nazira remembers her, maybe the others do too. After about a minute or so, he and Cassia walk after them, but stop short when they see that they're still talking and looking like maybe they're getting back together. And Kenji is kind of feeling a bit unsettled with all that he now knows. Cassia had always known about Juliet and never told her or him. But while standing there, Cassia gives him some fatherly advice and pep talk about Nazira, having noticed how he seems to have caught feelings for her. Then after he goes after Juliet, and she tells him what Nazira told her, that they're planning to destroy Sector 45. He gets overly happy, finally having it confirmed that she's on their side, and he can fully pursue her without fearing that she'll double-cross them. After he leaves Juliet, he runs into Sonia and Sarah, who are looking for Castiel, and they also give him some healing pills that they had worked on with James, who's been training with them. They tell him that they need to find Castiel because they found something regarding the guy who had been trying to kill Juliet, especially his tattoo, and also that he has something to do with Sector 241, and Nuria, who is not fully clear who she is, but it seemed to have been Castiel's family who had left him after his son's death. He had always thought that they could make up later, but the re-establishment started separating families, so it's not fully clear, but it kind of sounds like she was his wife maybe. It turns out that also what happened to Lily and Brendan, they too had been separated from the families when they had been young. When he then later sees Warner, Castiel, Nazira and Haida, Castiel and Warner both look like just about ready to vomit, as he puts it, and Warner basically bolts out of there, so whatever Nazira and Haida told them could not be good. So moving on to when they're at the podium and things are getting heated, he hears Nazira, while invisible, telling him that this is an ambush and that they have to get out of there immediately. He tries to get Juliet, but she's basically in shock and isn't reacting at all. But then all of a sudden everything apparently tilts and dizzying, but after a second he sees that Juliet is gone, just vanished right in front of him. And all the audience who were just dead, blood and body parts everywhere, get back up, looking perfectly fine. And while he's trying to figure out where she and Warner disappeared to, but they end shoving him away, saying that they need to go. And after they escape is where the book ends. Like I said, this book is just what the fuck, especially endings and especially the novella. They don't even add up what she saw and what he sees and how they just came back from the dead. And so this one just left me beyond confused because of how different that scene was from Kenji's point than from Juliet's. I kind of don't know if she wasn't too happy with the version where they were all shot or capped, so she decided to change it in Kenji's POV to them being fine and escaping. But I hope there's some kind of explanation in the next book because this one just confusing. And like I said in the beginning, this one was a fever dream, and maybe, just maybe, this series should have stayed a trilogy and ended it with the last. But anyways, everyone, that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. So until next time, peace out.